Hello, welcome or welcome back. It's been a while. Now the reason I'm back is because Flight Simulator 24's Sim Update 3 or SU3 was released a little over 2 weeks ago. And I think this is a great time to get back to Flight Simulator 24 and check it out. So you might be wondering, why am I standing next to a Eurocopter EC-135 at Amsterdam Airport? Well, let's get into that. As part of the Sim update, one of the items that was delivered was a new helicopter. Looks good, looks great. Another part of it is that they now allow you to download content rather than stream it. And I think that's a really big change and a really positive change. So before we get into going over any of the updates that are in Sim Update 3, the biggest one, being able to download content rather than stream it, is something I'd like to go over. Now, the problem that you do run into when you download stuff is it takes up space. A lot of space. In my case, if I had wanted to download every single piece that is being streamed, it would take up over 550 gigabytes. I know that to a lot of people who have previously played flight simulator games understand that, yes, it takes up a lot of space. But that, regardless, is a large amount of space. I decided to only pick items from the list that I believe are worth it, to no longer have those streaming, which includes the models for the airplanes, as well as the models for most of the world. When I look at the new variety that you have around the airport, you will still see a lot of the same airplanes with the same liveries. It does load in faster, and the graphic quality has drastically improved for me every time I load into the game. And I think that's a big improvement. For me, being selective about which items I wanted to download versus which items I wanted to stream came out to it currently taking up around 280 gigabytes of space, which is still a lot, but it is a lot less than the original 550 gigs. So what I am not streaming is basically everything in the miscellaneous categories, all the city updates, some of the missions, basically all of the world and scenery updates. What I am still streaming is aircrafts and liveries. And the reason for that choice is that is a much smaller component of the world here. As soon as I leave the airport, I also leave all of those aircraft behind. So for folks that are really into that, it is probably worth it for them to include that. For me, that was not. So why don't we go ahead and get in and get started. Now, while this gets going, I do want to note kind of the three areas that I'm breaking it up into. The first one is going to be items that are still broken and or missing. That speaks for itself. Then the largest portion is things that are fixed, as well as things that I've noticed are fixed, but I didn't really see reflected in the release notes. And as the final part, just the overall impression. Now, I will give kind of a taste of that by saying one thing I have noticed as I've gotten back into it is that I have had far fewer crashes to desktop. So far, I've had 0 since updating to Sim Update 3, where in the past I did get some. I will say that performance-wise, I have had some increased stuttering around heavy traffic areas where I previously did not have them, which I found a little bit strange, but I tried to kind of anticipate for that. Now it is kind of important to know as well, while I do play on a very average PC, this is not a high-end PC. It is a nearly 4-year-old Alienware Aurora R12. So I'm not expecting top-of-the-line performance. And I can show you as well when we go into the settings menu, where one of our first new additions is under graphics. I play on medium. Medium generally gets pretty good quality. New additions that you get to pick out are the airport quality and variety of a number of items: characters, services, parked aircraft, and traffic, as well as road traffic, sea traffic, and fauna. I've left these on medium, but I can totally understand that if you are someone that loves to see that airport variety, you are 100% going to, crank that up and get a better quality. Personally, seeing the improved visual quality around the airport as it is pretty much good enough for me. I'm very happy with that. Now, the EC-135 is new, and I will admit, this is my first time flying it, so we're going to see if we can get it off the ground without crashing into the building that is directly next to us. And kind of take a look around the world here, because I will say I have been very critical of the graphic quality. Now that I've completed downloading most of the items that previously were streamed, I'm curious to see how that pans out and if it's better, worse, or kind of the same. And if I look down at the highway here, the static images of the highway with random traffic overlaying, that's still the same. That has not changed at all. But when we head towards the city, there should have been pretty notable changes there, with a lot more variety in the buildings themselves. So let's go take a look that way. I will also say that one continued criticism I have, and I will argue and say that this is a fairly recent change of mind for me, is that the helicopter model, the helicopter flying model for Flight Simulator 24 is weaker than the one for 2020. These fly a little bit more, I almost want to say like an arcade. Now, when we look down here at the world below us, the generic buildings are, plainly spoken, very rough. That's the nicest thing I can say. When we see that building down there, the helipad is clear, but the buildings surrounding it are not. At this altitude, I was expecting a little bit better quality and better visuals overall. I'm not gonna lie, the color palette on most of these buildings looks entirely like it does not belong there. That is a little bit disappointing. Now, I set my destination for the Central Station, which is a landmark for the city of Amsterdam. There's a number of landmarks, but I figure let's pick the easiest one, right by the water. But frankly speaking, the purplish buildings, the weird purple hue, is not an improvement. And in the distance we can already see that the water is fracturing. You can see a large gap here. Let me see if I can bring this a little bit closer to take a look at that. If you look down at the water now, this is worse than it was before. That does not spark a lot of joy. Yeah, that is not great. On medium, again, the bridges are underwater. This was a complaint that I've previously had that has also not been resolved. This kind of quality is just dramatically bad. There's a theater down there, but it looks kind of goofy. Now, the train station should be a landmark, so it should have been saved locally. And granted, the building itself, you can tell, is much higher quality. I'm not going to complain about the construction pit that's in front of it. That's not the train station's fault. But as we lower, the quality of that specific landmark is fantastic. However, it is... kind of looks like it's floating a little bit above the ground. I'm trying to get us lower without crashing. Which is hard when the world looks like a Willy Wonka factory. Yeah. It's not great. So, that part, I would say, the landmarks look great. So a city like New York will probably look really great, whereas these individual cities, only the landmarks will look good. The rest of it will kind of not look so good. So let's head into career mode. Because this is where a lot of the changes come from. So what we'll go ahead and do is we're going to start ourselves a career mode flight. And while we're flying, we can discuss the items that are still broken, the things that have been fixed, and how we feel about the overall thing. One thing you'll see here is the Pilatus PC-24. If you want to argue about pronunciation, be my guest. The PC-24's been added. I've only recently been seeing that. Since medium cargo is the heaviest cargo that you can fly at this time, it's nice to at least have one more choice. There we go, we can pick a 172. That's a fairly short flight. Perfect. There have been some minor updates to this part as well, and we'll go over them as we start accepting the mission. On this screen, they replaced the... what did they use to place here? They currently show you the... they show you the wind speed and temperature. They used to display something different. It's a minor change. If you weren't paying attention to the mission schedule portion, you're not going to notice a difference. Now, the reason that you saw me not pick any of the cargo missions with the PC-12 is because while the patch notes are kind of a mishmash full of typos and errors, the PC-12 patch notes are basically a copy-paste of everything that was reported broken and was not fixed. I tried flying it again. Some of the bugs seem gone, but the throttle issues that I am still experiencing with it make it essentially unflyable. The same goes for the Cessna 408 Skycourier, which is far and away my favorite plane to fly. It will still give the G-force exceeded error when you load into the world with that plane, despite the plane, you know, sitting still on the ground, not moving. Engines turned off. It will give you that immediate 10% performance ding for G-force being exceeded. Somewhat disappointing because that is far and away my favorite medium cargo plane to fly. We're going to go ahead and just set it to 10,000 feet. There have been improvements to the EFB. Generally speaking, the route finding is a lot smoother. It loads a lot faster. My experience, it works better. Now, if you have an IFR route and you add a VFR portion to it, it will give you a warning telling you like, hey, this route will have a VFR portion as part of your route, which I think is pretty cool. Now, spawning into the world, honestly, I don't know if it's just me or because I've been absent for a while. I will say the areas around the airports load in a lot nicer. I have far fewer graphical glitches when loading into the... I say that while the Tomcat just appears out of nowhere. But in general, like the overall results have been really good. Let's go ahead and get this thing ready to go. I know what it's called. I know that there's a T in that word. I am still going to call it the pilot cover. And I removed it. Alright, we'll go ahead and get this thing started.
Hi there, it's Lorenzo. Now that you're all set up, let me go over the important details with you. You have loose cargo behind you. Important shipment for our client site. Expected in no time at Reggio Emilia. The skids have high tolerance with turbulence, but make sure you keep the delivery smooth and on time. All relevant information is in your flight packet, which is uploaded on your map as a reference. Fly safely, team.
Now let's make sure we have our lights turned on. There we go. All of our lights are turned on. One thing I will also say is that a lot of the voices seem a lot better. It's still very much AI generated, but from my perspective, it seems less, how would you say, less robotic, I suppose. And there we are, it holds short. Now, you just saw me applying the parking brakes. That is another improvement. You can now, parking brakes used to be a toggle control space. You can now have a parking brakes on or off button. It's a minor thing, but I actually think it's kind of a useful addition.
Delta 5412 heavy. Taking off runway 29er, south departure, Lima Sierra Papa Mike traffic.
Let's go ahead and taxi all the way to the start of the runway. Now and again, I will say the scenery, it has improved a lot. As far as career mode goes, though, I will tell you up front, one thing everyone has been asking for, which has been promised to us a long time ago and is still not available, is heavy cargo missions. Heavy cargo missions remain locked away. It's deeply disappointing because the C-160 Transall, which is far and away my favorite plane, has been updated for Flight Sim 2024 and will also be able to fly heavy cargo missions. So, you know, that would just, that's perfect. That would be wonderful for me. But unfortunately, that is just not on the roadmap. And I do feel like career mode, while having had some fixes, it has not had any additions. Meaning to say, everything that was originally promised and what looks like it should have been delivered a long time ago. And do you see that stutter? Yeah. This is something I do experience and did not used to experience before. There is a massive stutter. And let's see if I can get the exterior camera up. You move to the exterior camera and it disappears. I move back to the interior camera and it's back. You can see it in the rotor, you can see it in the camera movement in the vehicle on the right. It is horrifying. And again, external camera, and it's fine. So we're going to take off from the external camera. The moment this happens, it will basically just veer me right off of the road. The interesting thing is that as soon as you get off the ground, you're airborne, the stuttering stops, and it acts like it never did anything wrong. It is an insanely strange thing. I cannot go on autopilot here either. We are way too close to the mountainsides. It will just land us in the side of the mountain. We're just gonna have to try to slowly climb up out of the valley. And we most certainly will not be able to make it over that mountain. So let's start going around it while we climb. So like I said, heavy cargo missions are still missing. Deeply disappointing, even if they did add some additional airplanes to medium cargo. I still don't find that entirely acceptable. Another thing that is still very much broken is the H-225, the heavy helicopter, which you will also run into in career mode. That one will start jitterbugging and just completely lose control. It's a little bit strange, but it's one of those things that, from my perspective, the whole flight model for a helicopter should probably be revisited at some point. Like I said at the start, you experienced that stuttering on takeoff. This is something I never experienced before. I'm not sure where that comes from. It's kind of aggravating because you'll only ever be able to take off with the external camera. Making corrections that way is a lot harder. You'll more easily kind of veer yourself off the runway. The whole thing is not great. One thing I will say that has improved has been air traffic control responses. A lot less aggravating and a lot less holding the channel hostage. Now, one item, this is a very minor nitpick, but I'm still going to mention it, is that on the C-160 previously there were flares. After the airplane was updated and after Sim Update 3, flares no longer work properly. Kind of a shame. I love popping flares. It's just a visual thing. It's not the biggest thing in the world. One big thing though is that I don't know how you want to pronounce it. When it comes to the marketplace that is attached to Flight Simulator 2024 and 2020, you have a number of recognized brands when it comes to like indie builds. Generally, I think the Coronado airplanes are pretty decent. M Scenery is more of a, how would you say it, recognized name, but not in a good way. That's one of those things. They are still just pushing out a ton of really low quality items into the market that I think is not great for the marketplace, and it also makes it harder to actually find something you'd want to purchase. So I'm putting this under the header of things that are not fixed and should be fixed. M Scenery should be banned from the marketplace. Now, on to the positive things, though. The things that were fixed. One big one, and this might divide some people because not everyone is a fan of SimRate. However, when you use SimRate now, it also accelerates actual time. Previously, the clock would keep ticking as is, meaning that you would go faster, but the world around you would necessarily not. It's been updated so that everything, time is accelerated according to your sim rate. Another one that I mentioned before, EFB, has been improved a lot. And for those new to it, this right here is your EFB, your little tablet. From my perspective, route planning is a lot better. I've had a lot fewer bugs with it. It also, like I said, gives you that appropriate indication if your IFR flight plan includes a VFR portion. Another one that I think is big, but is really a minor change, is that when you're flying an airplane, it is no longer displaying helipads or ports on the map. That sounds pretty logical, right? But the UI is already littered with a lot of icons, so removing this is a great first step in decluttering it. I can't land my little Cessna at a helipad, so why even display it? Now, I would also say that the reverse should kind of work, and that they really should start looking at automatically filtering out any kind of airport or landing space that is inappropriate for the aircraft that you're flying. For example, if I'm flying a heavy cargo aircraft or a Boeing 737, there is zero reason for me to be able to show on a runway that's like half a foot long. That's just not reasonable. Doing it that way might be a good improvement for the future. Now that we're at altitude, we should be able to start moving over a little bit. Let's see if we can make a turn and try not to crash. There's an opening right there that we might be able to climb just far enough to get over. If I remember correctly, this thing has a ceiling of 14,000 feet, so this is a little bit of a challenging area to fly in. Let's keep our heading at 220. I might have to just try to get this thing up a little bit further, just so we can survive going over the mountain here. Now again, like we said at the start, the reworked airports have better performance, the graphics settings to be able to adjust the quality and quantity of everything around the airport, including characters, fauna, vehicles, airplanes, giving you more control over what you want to see. That's great. Supposedly VRAM consumption overall has been reduced. I have not really noticed a change, and like I said at the start, I am experiencing that stuttering. So from my perspective, I'm not going to make a definitive call for everybody here because I don't speak for everybody. But overall, this does not seem to have had the effect that it should have. In fact, it kind of made it worse for me. Again, I play on an Alienware Aurora R12. It has a GeForce RTX 3060. It is a somewhat older system. Another one that did greatly improve, you won't see it here today because we are flying in the daytime, but the overall lighting, especially for the small planes, has pretty dramatically improved. Roof lights, landing taxi lights, spotlights, you name it. My one caveat with that is I hate to tell folks because most people seem to really enjoy the airliners. The larger airplanes still seem kind of mediocre at night. The lighting is not great. But there's improvement. I'm saying hopefully they can push that forward and continue to improve on it. Like I said before, the parking brake used to be a toggle. Now you have an on-off input. If you're into key binds, that's great. I bind a lot of my keys to a Stream Deck. That makes it infinitely easier. One kind of important one, this is kind of a big one that I want to draw your attention to, especially since we're in a mission right now. In career mode, you'll have noticed on the mission steps there are often spots where you can skip to the next portion, right? You can skip to taxi, you can skip to takeoff, and once you're at your cruise altitude, you can also skip to your destination. Now, previously, if you skipped to your destination while you did not have enough fuel, that would be somewhat of a problem. Now, it will disable the skip to destination button in career mode if you do not have enough fuel or your aircraft is damaged. So keep that in mind if you are ever flying and you're wondering like, hey, why can't I skip it? If you're used to being able to skip it, it is probably because you either damage your airplane, and you should be very well aware of that, or you don't have enough fuel on board. And in the case of where you don't have enough fuel on board, there is a key binding. I will see if I can find that very quickly for everyone. Which one do I have it bound to? Actually, I know which input it is. That is this one, this one, this one. There you go. Add fuel quantity. Add this binding to whatever key you want to add it to. You can just add fuel on the fly. I know I've mentioned this before. Your performance does not get dinged if you use that key to add fuel. You'll just save yourself the heartache of failing a mission. Clouds are supposed to look better. There's supposed to have been significant improvements to the clouds, as well as the sun in low light settings, sunrise and sunset. I think they kind of look the same to me, but I'm no expert on clouds. One thing for newer players is that most of the training mission bugs have been fixed. This is something that was long overdue because at this point finding new players to the genre is hard. This should have been first on their list, but I'm glad that they did actually fix most of the stupid bugs that occurred in the training missions. It makes it a little bit easier to get into it. Especially the first few helicopter missions, the bugs on there were awful. There we go, we should be almost there. Now, as I mentioned before, air traffic control has had a lot of fixes. I think it's gotten a lot better. One improvement I've especially seen is the holding the channel hostage issue. I don't know if any of you have ran into this, but if you're in a busy area and air traffic control is trying to talk to someone at the same time where you're trying to also get something done, for example, you're trying to get takeoff clearance, I've had it where another plane is asking for a tug. Yeah, stall yourself while you're at it. I've had it where another airplane will ask for a tug and just keep asking and asking and asking and basically holding the entire channel hostage, and it takes forever before you can finally get on that actual radio. That has drastically reduced. I'm fighting the autopilot for a second here because it does still do the wig-wag while it tries to align itself, which is a somewhat irritating habit that it has. Some other improvements there: better pronunciation. If you miss your IFR takeoff clearance, you can just continue VFR without having to re-ask. You can re-ask, but you don't have to. So overall, you know, I'm giving the ATC updates quite a lot of leeway here. It has improved quite a bit. And then it comes down to things that I did notice, but I'm not sure if they were actual fixes. Now you see in the top right, skip to descent. That is the change I was talking about. If I had no fuel, if I dumped more fuel than I would consume going to my destination, that would disappear and no longer allow me to skip to descent because I would run out of fuel and crash. So yeah, there's two things I noticed that weren't in the release notes necessarily, but I think are great improvements. The first one I've mentioned before. I have had no more crashes to desktop. That's awesome. I know that there's going to be someone who leaves a comment and goes, well, mine still crashes to desktop. I'm sorry, Chief. That's between you and Microsoft. I'm just noticing that has improved for me. The other thing is that during medium cargo missions, which again is the bulk of flying that I do, the destination airports seem a lot less broken. So in the past, it would send you to airports that were just unreasonable to fly to or land at because they either had insanely short runways, were in places where you just could not get a medium cargo plane on the ground. I haven't ran into that issue at all over the past week and a half of playing again. I think that's a positive change. Maybe I've just been lucky because, like I said, I haven't seen this reflected in the patch notes themselves. So while we continue flying this, really, I'm kind of at the end of the entire list that I had. If you want to read the entire, patch notes, by all means, be my guest, read through them. There is a lot there. It's kind of split out awkwardly too, because it kind of jumps from general fixes to specific airline fixes to more general fixes to specific software fixes to more airplane fixes. The patch notes are poorly written, full of typos. Like I said, go ahead and check out the Pilatus PC-12 notes and you'll be like, what am I actually reading? They just copy-pasted off the forum what the actual existing bugs were and still are for that plane. That's why I only cherry-picked the ones that I think have improved, things that I believe are, great improvements and have actually seen myself as being positive improvements. And so, at the end of it, my overall impression. Any improvement is good. I just want to start there. Any improvement in this is good. Have I seen enough improvement? No. Do I have what was promised when I purchased a very expensive game? No. Are there still bugs? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, Sim Update 3 has delivered on quite a lot. And it might not affect everyone the same way, but the overall results are here. And because of that, I'm just flat out giving it an 8 out of 10, because any improvement at this point is good improvement. And if they keep on this trajectory and keep making as many fixes, I'm hoping that at least before the end of the year, and then we're, what, a year and a half down the road? That's something. But then we'd at least have, for example, a fully complete career mode. Now, the last thing I want to add to that is, if you are interested in, you know, not wanting to wait for that and wanting to look at what other options you have, especially if you're career mode oriented, take a look at NeoFly. It is an add-on. It is really, really hard to get into because there's a lot of documentation to read. You have to figure a lot of things out yourself. But if you are into that career mode, an add-on like NeoFly might make your life a lot easier. The same goes for people who don't want to use the air traffic controller, because nobody likes being told the same thing over and over again by the same AI air traffic controller. There are options, there are add-ons, you know, by all means you can take a look at those as well. But overall, like I said, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I'm seeing a lot of good improvement, and it actually got me interested in flying some more again, which, as far as I'm concerned, is always a positive outcome. And will you look at that, though? That is one hell of a view, isn't it?
Descend and maintain flight level 290, Ryanair underscan 4266.
Well, with that, thank you for watching. I'm hoping to start making some more videos again in the future. I've been really enjoying flying again, especially with fewer crashes and fewer issues. So I'm hoping to be putting out more videos in the near future. But as it stands, thank you for watching. And if you do have any questions about what's in the patch notes, because I did read all of them, by all means, feel free to ask in the comments. Have a great day.